Hello everyone. I welcome you all to this session on getting started with JavaScript. This session has been organized by the efforts of DSC Kite. We are a community of developers who learn, share, and code together. You can check more about us on dsckite.com. So this session was supposed to be a live session, but we ran into some technical glitches. So we are recording this instead. Anyway, I want to thank you all for being here and watching, and for all of you who are watching this session right now. So let me just start by introducing myself. My name is Rohan Mehta, and I am a third year engineering undergraduate. I have been working with JavaScript and creating websites for the past 2 years. I am here to share things that I've learned and experienced along the way. So, the material for this session would be updated on the GitHub repo. You can check the description below. So let's start with the slides, I guess. Yeah. So what we'll cover today, we'll cover the basic JavaScript types and variables, the conditionals and loops in JavaScript, some basic data structures like strings, arrays, and object in JavaScript, so functions, how to use functions, what are callback functions in JavaScript, basic ES6 syntax, which is basically a new way to write JavaScript, which is more which makes our code readable and good. Then a new concept called promises and async await, which is fairly a new concept to learn, and we'll dive into this today. Okay, so what this session is, where you will learn the foundational skills to get started as a JavaScript developer. This session will be basically a very basic session to get started with like a programming language. So what this session is not, a comprehensive overview on JavaScript. So I've been also self teaching myself JavaScript for the past 2 years, and so don't let this session be the end of your quest. Just keep searching on things you want to learn in JavaScript, and keep fidgeting with the programming language. Okay, so let's get started with some code. So here I am. This is a code sandbox environment. I am using codesandbox.io which spins an editor in the browser for me. You can use any editor of your choice. It's on your choice. So we have a basic HTML file with us with the title and a script. Yeah. So let's just console log things to check if things are working. Yes. Yeah. So console log is just like printing something on the console. So what is the console? So console is just like when you do Control Shift I on the browser. So then you see some things on the browser. This is a developer console. So just like printing is in Python or C++, this works like a developer's console. So everything's working fine now. Let's get started with var, let, and const. So var, let, and const, what are these? These are these are how we declare variables in JavaScript. So these are variable declaration in JavaScript. So like you have seen in C++ and other programming languages, you need to specify the type of a variable first before going forward. So in JavaScript this doesn't happen. In JavaScript everything is dynamically typed, so we use var to give a variable some value. Like in this we are giving it a value of 10, and then we can just console log this, and it automatically assigns the URL a type of number and gives us the value 10. During runtime we we can also change the type of this value. So we can do just var url equals to, now it's a string, now it converts into string. So JavaScript is really flexible in this, in these scenarios. We can just convert a number from a string without specifying during runtime. So let's move forward with this. So in var we can assign a value, or we can like you have seen, we can redeclare the value, or we can just reassign the value to something else. So it works, it has a global scope, nothing is wrong with this. Let's see the function scope of var. We are defining a function with name my function, and we are my function, and we are creating a value named 1, which is variable 1, and we are just console logging it. Okay, now down below we call this function, and what happens if I try to access the value of 1 after calling the function? This would throw me an error. 1 is not defined. Why is that so? Because 1 is in the scope of this function. It is only defined within this function, and it is not defined globally. So that is why var has a scope in a function block or a global scope. Okay, so this is var. I just comment this code for. Now let's see the problem with var. Problem with var is like, if we have a variable named counter and its value is 1, and if there is a if statement, if counter is greater than 0, then something would happen. We'll accidentally change the URL to some number, but actually it was supposed to be a string, but we are redeclaring the variable here and changing its value to a number, and we console log that value here first. Okay, and after the statement ends, we can again console log the value, or we could just copy this console log here. So you're seeing the function, the URL was first drawn, and then it in the if block it changes into a number. So this is the problem with var. It should have been scoped within this code block, but so this could lead to some bugs in our code, and that is why using var is not suitable for code. So that is why these are the problems with var. Let's see some more types, which are let and const. What is let? Let is same like var. We can have a let URL equals to google.com, and we can reassign it to facebook.com. But what we can't do in let is we can't redeclare it to something else. It will throw us an error. So this is what let is supposed to do. It helps us so that we don't redeclare any variable while writing a code. So that this removes a lot of bugs. And similarly, const is for, as the name suggests, constant variable. So we have a constant variable which is supposed to be 10. It is not supposed to change. So if we are to reassign this constant variable something else, like a string, which should not have been changed, so this will throw an error, because constant variable is read only, because this const keyword will make it a constant variable. So that this is how let and const work in JavaScript. So let's solve the problem with var. solve the problem with var using let. So previously we were having a URL which is equal to google.com and it is supposed to be string, but if we are having a counter which is equal to 1 and if counter is greater than 0, we are again defining a URL and setting it to I guess 50. We console log the URL here and we also console log the URL here. Let's see what happens. For the first console log, the URL is 50 itself. It's 50 because in this scope the URL has the value 50, but of the for the global scope URL has value google.com, so it doesn't change the value of URL inside the this block of code. So this has a lot of usage, uses, because if we are to use this URL again inside any code block, this will be scoped to this code block. It will not hinder the values of the original global value. But if we want to change the original global value, we can just remove this let and change the value. So in this we are selecting the global one, because we are not redeclaring URL, we are just selecting the global value. So this is how we solve the problem in var. So this was all var, let and const. I will just show you a table so that you can learn faster. So this is a table for variable declaration. We have a var which has a scope of global and function. You can redeclare it, yes. You can update it, yes. Anything can be done with var variables. Then let, for let we have a global scope and and within any curly braces. So within any function curly brace or if else curly brace, or the let variable has a scope within that only. So we can redeclare this? No. Once a value is declared, you can only update it in the let type. In the const type, we can this is same as let, but we cannot redeclare it and we can also not reassign it. So this was variable declaration. Let's move on to some types in JavaScript. JavaScript types. Let's see some basic types. A number, we can have a number as a Java number type. We can, okay, what is this? Unexpected, this is a word let. Okay, we can have a string. This has a type of number. This variable has a type of number. This variable has a type of string. We can have an object, which is something of object type in JavaScript. Arrays are also object in JavaScript, so we can have these arrays and their type will be object. Then we have boolean. We have boolean as true or false. We can have true false values for boolean. Then we're done with number, we're done with string, we're done with boolean. Then we have null. Let a value be null. So null, what is it is just to show that this value contains nothing, but it is defined and it is holding some value, but it is nothing, it is null. So to check if a value is having nothing for now, so it is null. So now we have some other value and we are not assigning it some value, so some other thing, so it is undefined. It has undefined value. So if we print it, if we try to print some other value, it will show us okay, yeah, it will show undefined. And same for we have a inbuilt type of function in JavaScript which gives a type of a number returning the type as a string. So we have type of number as number. We can copy this and check for str, which is a type of string. We can copy this and check for object, which is a type of object. We can again copy this, paste it here. Type of bool is a boolean. Type of, this would be interesting, type of value is object. And why is it so? Because JavaScript works like that only. JavaScript assigns null as an object, and that is a problem with the language, but it is what it is. Type of some other value is undefined because it is not yet been given some value, so it is undefined for now. So these are some basic JavaScript types. There are more types in JavaScript like symbol and big int. You can just check them out on MD and docs or anywhere, and where W3 school or anywhere else. So we are done with types. I'll just show you the types which were these are some 8 basic types in JavaScript: number, big int, string, boolean, object, null, undefined. We discussed 6 of them, and 2 of them you can all check them in MD and docs or W3 school. So now let's move on to some code, I guess. Yeah, let's move on to some code. So let's check out what is in our list for now. Type. Yeah, double equalities and triple equalities. Double equalities and double equal and triple equal. So let's check out this example. We have 1 2 3 double equals 1 2 3. It is giving us true. And why is this happening? Because JavaScript is implicitly type converting this 1 2 3 into string, and the string matches perfectly, so it is true. So the problem is double equal is it implicitly converts the type of its operands without us knowing, and that could lead to some bugs. So what we should do is we should use triple equals. That will not convert the type and return us false, which should be the case. So these are double and triple equals. This will return true for us. This will return false. Let's see some more weird examples. 1 2 3 plus 3 2 1. What will happen here? Yeah, JavaScript is doing this for us. It is converting this 3 to 1 into string, and then concatenating the strings with this. So these strings are being added. So JavaScript is implicitly type converting this for us. So it does not only type converts number to string, it can convert string to numbers as well. Like in this case, this time this 1 is converted to number to give us 0. In this example, 3 to 1 was converted to string and to give us a 1 2 3 2 1 string. And in this example, we are getting this as a string, and this is converted to number, and then subtraction is being followed. So this will print 1 2 3 3 2 1. This will print 0. Okay, so we can explicitly also convert the types. Like if we have if we have a string 1 2 3 and we want to convert its type to number, so we will call the number function in JavaScript, inbuilt JavaScript. We'll give it the value 1 2 3, and it will convert 1 2 3 to number for us. Okay, and now we'll copy this and check if what happens if we pass some other characters which are not number. So it will give us nan, which is not a number. So if any string contains even a single character which is not a number, then this will return us nan. Let's see what happens if these numbers have white space between them. Okay, now for between we are getting not a number, but for left and right white space it just trims the white space and gives us the number. Okay, now let's type convert some more. Let's type convert boolean of 1. So 1 is a truthy value and it will give us true. What happens for 0? It will give us false. So it is basic. What happens for a string? A string is a truthy value, so it will give us true, but for an empty string, let's see what happens for empty string. So an empty string is a falsy value, so it will give us false for this. So this is how we can type convert things in JavaScript. Let's check out one more example and we'll move on. Let's type convert something which is undefined. So this time we are passing it undefined to string, and this it is returning us a string which is undefined. Like if we were to check this, we are having a string name undefined. Is it equal to the returned value? Yeah, this is equal. This is equal to the return value. So what is happening here is the string is taking undefined as an argument and returning the string version of undefined, which is double quotes undefined. Okay, so we are done with this type conversion. Now let's move on to conditionals. Yeah, let's move to conditionals and loops. In JavaScript we have if else, just like if some value is true, some value is true, then this code will run. Else we have else if as well. Else if this is true, then this will run. Oops. This will run. Else if all of them are false, then this will run. So this is how if else work in JavaScript. We have a switch also in JavaScript. Let I equals to 0, switch that I. In the switch case we have case 0, we console log I and we'll break. It works just same as C and C++, no difference. That is why I was saying that its syntax mainly is fairly similar to C++. Console log default. Console.log default. Okay, so if I is 0, then it will print 0. If I is something else, it will print default value. Okay, so these were some conditionals in JavaScript. Let's see some loops. For loop, we are having a for loop. Let I equal 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Will now omit the curly braces because it is a single line, so it will print I for 5 times, 0 1 2 3 4 5. Cool. Now let's check it for a while loop. While I is less than 5, we'll do the similar console logging without the curly braces. We can have a curly braces if we have more than one line, but here for the sake of this we are having one line. Okay, we can have a double line in while to increment I plus plus. Come on. Okay, so this is working, I guess. Clear out the console. I less than 5 console log. It is printing infinitely. It is wrong here. I 0 is less than 5, I plus plus. It is printing infinitely. Nice. Let's reload the page. While I is 0 to 5. Yeah, so it is now working fine. Cool. So these were some loops in JavaScript. Now let's move on to the basic data structures: strings, arrays, and objects. These are more fun to work with. Strings, we can define strings as let str equals to a single inverted comma and a string variable. We can also do like it. We can also have double inverted commas for them. Oh, it is already doing this for us. Okay, no issues. We can have single inverted for a single value. No, it is already always converting it, so let it be. So we can have a double inverted. Also we can have this type of string variable. In this we'll be using these are called template literals, but we'll be using it in the ES6 section. But this is how we can this is how we can define string. So let that be open. We can use to access the string, we can use srt 0. We'll console log this, console log this. Okay, spelling mistake. Console log the 0 value, which is the s value, which gives us the first character. Let's console log the 100 value. So it gives us undefined because the string length is not greater than 100, so it will give us an undefined value. That is why we are accessing the string which is not yet defined. Okay, we can strings are immutable in JavaScript, which means if we are to change the value in runtime, we cannot do this because 0 is read only. Strings are immutable. Strings are immutable. Okay, let that be. Now we have some methods on string which can make our lives easier. Methods on string. And I will discuss some methods let's see, slice. I'll discuss uppercase first. To uppercase, slice, and split. I will discuss these two. You can also check out the MDN docs for that. Let's console.log str.to uppercase. What happens? String variable is now uppercased. Let's check out the string variable again after uppercasing it. So it is not mutated. I mean to say that this does not change the original string. It will just return the uppercase version. But as you can see, the string variable is not changed. So we can use a slice on string. Slice is just returning a substring from a value to another value. So starting from the 0 index, we can slice 2 characters. So from 0 value we are slicing till 2. So from 0, 1, and when the value is equal to 2, then it will not print that value. It will return us 0 and 2. So we can do slice from 1 to 2, which means starting from 1 going to 1 and then 2, and 2 should not be printed, so it will return us t. So this is how slice works. You can also have split. Split is just to split the strings into some array or something to work with. So we have split, and we'll be splitting with when first the split is, you can see the split is happening because on every after every character. The split is happening after every character of the string. But if we give the string some value, split function some value, split it on a white space, so it will give us two elements in an array, string and variable, because they are splitted like this and this, they are split. We can also have a delimiter. This is called delimiter. We can split at slash, but as we don't have slash in the string, so it will give us only one element. So we can add slash in the string to split it on the slash. So this is the example of splitting the array. Okay, these were arrays. Sorry, these were strings. Let's move on to arrays. Arrays. For arrays, we can define an array like array, let array equals to, and square brackets 1 2 3 4 45 4 or 6. This is how we define an array of any size. If we have the size beforehand, then we can use this syntax to define an array of that determined size. So in here we are initializing an array of size 5. So that's console log the first array. So in the first array we have 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's console log the second. We have 5 values, but all are undefined because all these values have not been set yet. So we can use array1 and we can mutate the values directly in those. So arrays are mutable. Let's say we give it 45. So the first value is 45. So arrays are mutable. Cool. So let's move on. Let's comment this out. Okay, methods on array. Oops. Methods on array. We have some methods on array which are push, pop, splice, and you can check more on MDN docs. That's console.log array.push, and we will push 100. So it will push 100 in array at the last position. So we'll console log the array again. Oops. Console dot log array. So you can see the array was changed. It has now 100 at the end. You can also just copy it below and do this console log array dot pop, and what this will do is it will pop the last element from the array, whatever the last element be. So we can run this multiple times and it will pop out the array, return us the popped element, and then we are console logging this array and it has now only 2 values. What happens if we pop more pop and array is already so it will return undefined values for the pop, and the array is already empty. So this works perfectly fine for us. I'll delete them. Okay, array push will push 100 at the end. Arrays 1 2 4 45 6 and 100. Array pop will pop the last element and return it. Now this is 1 2 4 45 6 plus. Let's comment this out. Okay, now we'll console log another method which is array dot splice. What splice is, it deletes some values from the array. So if we are to delete 4 and 45, okay, so let's check where is 4. 4 is at 0 1 2 second index, so we'll give the index, and then we'll give how many values to delete. So from 2 we need to delete 2 values. So let's delete the 2 values. It will return us the 2 deleted value. And if we are to console log the array again, it will give us 1 2 and 6, and this will give us the 2 deleted values, which is 4 and 45. Okay, cool. The arrays are completed. Now let's move on to objects. Okay, Objects are some for some complex data type data structure. So let object, we're defining object like with let object with curly braces, and here we can have an object with name as a string, name as a string, city as a string, age, sorry, age as a number. We can have a combination of string, numbers, and anything. This name can be first name first, which is Rohan, and last, which is Mehta. So it can hold objects inside objects. So this is a combination of all data types in object. So if we were to console log the object, console.log the object, it will show us the object. Here we can see that object, the object has a type object, and it has a name, which is again object, which has a first key, which has a string value, last as a key, which is string value, city as a string, and this has a number value. So to get these keys, these name, city, and age, these are the keys in the object. So to get the keys of the object, we can have some this will let me go on methods on object. We have some methods on object as well. We can do methods on for object, because they are not directly accessible from the object value. We have to use some other thing, like we are using capital object, which is an inbuilt function in JavaScript, which takes inbuilt method in JavaScript, which has a method keys on it, which takes the object which we were to define here, the object. It takes it and returns the keys of that object, that is name, city, and array. So the keys are just like array, which are being returned. You can also have object.values to get the values of these keys. So the name had the value as an object, and the city has Lucknow, and age at in particular order they are given as the values. Also we can have the values of the nested object, which is object.name. You can have the values of that too directly. If we were to give age and pass it on, then it will give us an empty array, because that is not a valid object. So it will not perform the values, it will not give the values as an array for that. So let me just give you one more example, one more method, that is entries. It returns both keys and values as an array, both keys and values in the inside this whole array. Three arrays are being returned, of which the first array contains the key and value, second array contains the key and value, and third array element contains the key value. So this is useful for working with objects. So we are done with objects now. Let's move on to functions. Okay, so let's move on to simple functions, how they are defined. For functions definition, we need a function keyword, the name of the function, my function. Then we need curly braces, and then we can return something from function, or we can choose to not return anything. So if this function is being given an argument name, it will return that back. So we'll console log the func value. So let me first define the func value. Func value will be my function called with some value called name, and it will return that and assign it to my func value. That is why it is printing Rohan. So this is simple function. Let me have simple functions with default arguments. So what if I don't pass Rohan in it? What happens? Okay, it's throwing error because it is already defined. Okay, so what happens if I don't pass anything? So this name will be undefined, and then it will return undefined. So this is not what we want. We want this function to always return a string. whether name is being passed to it. So we'll have a default value for it, some name. So if we don't pass the function with the argument required for it, so it will assign it as some default values, so and then it will return that value, and this is why it is printing name. But if we were to change that, we can pass it the value and it will return that value for us. So these are default functions. Okay, now let's see function expressions. Function expressions are just like writing an expression. We are writing an expression for expression is just like let some value equals to some value, some variable equals to some value. So this is an expression. So what is a function expression? We are assigning some variable a function which doesn't have a name yet, and it will have a name variable passed to it, name argument passed to it, and it will return that variable. So what is happening here? We are using something called anonymous function. Anonymous function, which doesn't have a name. This function doesn't have a name. Before we were using myfunc as a name, but the function doesn't have a name. This function is anonymous function. It takes argument name and it returns that again, and this whole gets sticked on this myfunc variable. So now we can use the myfunc variable to call out this function. So if we console log value and let value equals to myfunc, and we'll send Rohan in it. So the value returning from the function is coming here. We can also do this myfunc sorry anything else is equal to myfunc. We can just do this. So now myfunc can be called assignment to undeclared variable. Okay, this is not declared. Let any equals to function. We can still use the myfunc, or we can use the any also. So this function can be passed on to this variable, and this variable can pass on that to any other variable. So this is called function expressions. Myfunc. Now why is this throwing error? Myfunc is not defined, but it is defined. Let me rerun this. Okay, it is lowercase. Fine. Okay, let's move on to conditional function declaration. Conditional functions. Let's say an example. If we have some value to be true, we'll define a function name function say name, and it will be given a name, and what it will do, it will just console log that name for us. Okay, and if the value is false, let's use a variable here, value, and let value be true for the first time. Okay, and for the second else we'll have this. Now if the code runs fine and we use say name function here, and we'll give it some name Rohan, so let's see what happens. Say name is not defined. Why is this happening? We defined the function, but we can't call it. So this is conditional definition of function. This is happening because it is scoped inside the else part, so it is not yet defined outside this block. So we cannot use this say name variable for this. What we can do is we can to solve the above problem. This is an error. This throws undefined error. Solution. Let's see the solution of above error. We'll again use this code here, and this time if we'll do this, use function expression say name. We'll define say name as nothing, it is undefined for now, and now when we are calling this function we can do this. We can remove say name and assign it to this. So now say name is available to us in the global scope, so we can now use say name, and it will run if statement or a else statement, but say name will be assigned a function, that is for sure. So we can use say name for now because it is now it is now a global variable, so we can use that say name. And if we can change this to false, again nothing happens, no error happens. So this is conditional functions. So this is the case when you can use function expressions or a function what we say a simple function. So you can choose to use function expressions when there is this type of problem. If you are defining a function in some other block and you need to call it in outside the block, so you can use function expressions for this. But if you want to use if you don't want to use function expressions and it looks a bit funky to you, then you can check out the simple function declaration. Okay, so we are done with functions. Now let's move on to callback functions, which is the main pressure point for some JavaScript developers. Callback functions. So what callback functions are? So callback functions, as the name suggests, these functions are let me show you with an example. We'll take a load script function. We'll define a load script function first. Function load script, and it will take the name of the script and some callback. What it will do, it will call the callback. Just bear with me, I'll give you the explanation for this. So we have to define the callback too. What is callback? Function callback name, and it will console log the error comma name. Error is false. Callback is not defined. Okay, sorry, I know what is happening here. Load script will have a name in it. Name is rohan.js, and callback function will be the callback. So what is happening here? We have two function definitions here. One is callback function, which is a callback which will be passed error value and a name variable, and it will then console log those two for us. And then we have a load script which receives the name and a callback, and here the name is string, and this callback here is the function. The whole function callback function is being received here. So what is happening? The load script is taking the string value, and this callback is being passed to the load script. And what load script does, it calls the function for us. So here we can use some other variable. For sake of, we can use another variable. So this cb is now scoped within this load script function. Cb is scoped within this function. We cannot use cb outside this function. Okay, and when we are calling the load script, we are passing it the this name, which Rohan.js just sticks to the name variable, and the callback function, this callback full function, we are passing the whole definition. If we were to this console log, what is callback here? So callback is a function which has some definition, inside it. We are not calling it, we are not instantly calling this function, but we are passing this function to the load script function. And what the load script function, it is expecting a value cb, which should be a function, and if cb is there, then it will call that function for us with the values false and name. And we knew that the caller function will have two values in it, error and name, and it will it knows that it has to pass two values in it. So we can use that as then this will be called, and when this will be called, it will look for the function which was passed. So this cb is pointing to this callback, and this callback is pointing to this. So when we are calling this cb, it is actually calling this callback. So what is happening is callback is called like this, and it is being passed false and name. So so we require the name which was passed in the load script. So that is why we are using callback here. So it is a bit confusing. So I will I'll give you an example of a real world example. So let's say you are in a restaurant and you order something, and when you order, you give the waiter your mobile number. So you ask the waiter that whenever the order is ready, you should call me on this mobile and tell me that the order is ready. So the waiter takes the customer's mobile number and goes on to prepare the order. So when the order is prepared, he then calls that person. So relating that to our code here, this load script is what is the waiter is loading some order. It takes the name of the order, what is the name, and callback is the mobile number of the person which who placed the order. So what it does is, in the load script function, load script is called here, okay, with the name and the function which he will call later when he is finished executing, he is finished preparing the order. So here he will finish the order, he will create the order for the person, and when the when the order is completed, he will then call that person using the same reference given to him. In the example case, we have been given a mobile number of the person. In this example, we are given the reference to the function. So we can call this function here, and when we have to call, we can pass the values. In the example, we can pass that your order is ready and you can come and collect the order. And here in this case, we are passing callback to the values that it expected. It was expecting an error value and a name value. So it gets passed the error value and the name value for that, and finally it console logs with the values. So that was some basic example of callback function. For more technical example, I can show you a technical example. In the real world, we can see callbacks like when you are querying a database. So let's say we are using SQL, and we are given a function SQL, and we are passing it some query. So let's say there will be some query, select query, and it will be some absurd query, and we are passing it a function again. So what we want from this SQL function is that whenever they are done with executing this query, they will call this function which we are giving them. This function, let me write the function for us. Console log the result. So what will happen when the SQL it runs a function. SQL is a function. It runs. It takes the query, and it takes a whole function as an argument. Whole function. It will not call. It will not call at first. It will take it as an argument. Like in this case, we were taking the callback as a full argument. The callback function was not being called here. It was taken as an argument by the load script function. The same way, the SQL will take the function as an argument, and wherever the SQL this function definition is written, for example, let's say SQL is written somewhere like this. SQL, it will be given a query, and it will be given a callback function, and whenever first it will execute the query on the database side, execute query, and whenever the query is executed, if they are given, if they give an error, then they can pass that CB, the error, and with result as null. It can pass the error and result as null, or if the query passes, then it can pass the error as null and results as the results. So I know it is a bit confusing for now. So let's check out a simple example with the load script we were using. So I'll just create a new function, simple loads, or we can move to a more good example, which is an API example for callback function, for implementing callback function. Okay, so we need a script tag to do this. I'm just pasting a script inside our HTML code. This script is for jQuery, which allows us to have this to make an API call. We don't have to use fetch for now, because fetch works in some other way, and it does not use callback function. So we can use the URL api.github.com/users/rhnmst30. So it will go to this URL, and this is a success key inside this. So what is happening here? This $sign is given to us by the script. This $sign is given to us, and it has a getJSON function in it, and it will have the URL. It will have the URL in the in object, and the success function to call whenever the URL it has fetched the contents from this URL, and an error function to call when there is some error. So we will write our own success function. So what success function expects? It expects some data, and whatever data it expects, it will console log that data. And what is we'll write our own. Let me just use own success. It is our own success function, and we will write our own error function. It will return the error. It will get an error, and it will console log that error. Now what we do, we just uncomment this code, and we will just say that if this URL is successfully fetched, then you can just call my own success function. If this URL is successfully if this URL is not successfully fetched, then you can call my own error function. So in this way we are passing. So this is not defined. Why is this? it's working. So what is happening here is when the URL is being fetched and we are getting the results, it will look into its success key, and it will find that here I am passing a function, and this function is it passes the data on its own. So it takes that function as a callback function. It will take the function and it will save it in its memory to use it whenever the request has been fetched. So I will pass and I can write my logic here. This is my logic to do my logic to use the data. This data will be passed passed by this get JSON method. It will take the own success as a callback, and it will call it later when something happens with this URL. So it will pass on the data, and finally the console log. I will console log this data is coming from the API, GitHub API, and if some error occurs. So let's see users. I do this users. So it is returning me the error. So this is a bit weird. Yeah, here's a response, not found error. So I can use this error own error function, which gives me the error, and I can look into the error again. So this was a basic example using callbacks, what callbacks are for. So let me just rewind again. I'm writing my own function here, which I expect that it will receive the data, and what I do with that data is my choice. And I give this function reference to this utility, that whenever you have a success in fetching this URL, you can just call my function and pass on the data. It can pass several other arguments, but I will take only data. It can do like however the success is executed, it can pass on data or something else, but my function definition is only takes the first argument. So it will take the data only. So you can guess why this is not the best way to use callbacks. Why callbacks are not the best? Because you are giving your function to someone else to execute, right? So your defined function, you are giving that for someone else. What if this success function does not give you data and something else? So you are giving your critical function. This is your critical function. This function is defined by you, and this function is based on your methodology. So you are expecting that it will pass data, and you blindly give on this success your own success function. So what if it doesn't pass the data? So this is why callbacks are not a good way to fetch APIs, fetch things, but it has some other uses too. So you can check that out. Callback is still not like we are not using callbacks these days. We are using callbacks but not in all the places. So that is why we have another concept, promises. But first let's see some ES6 syntax before we move on to promises. Promises will solve this issue for us where we have to give our own critical function. Okay, it will just show me some error. Okay, ES6. Let's check out template strings. So later, before we discussed the three ways of for defining a string. I guess it was here. Yeah. So this definition of string. I'll use this again. So let string be. We're using the backticks here, which is next to 1. The backticks. What is the use of this? We can use this. Let's say we have a number of 12, and we want to use this value 12 inside a string. So string value is, we can use this like this. So what happens is console log console log the string. So what happens is this number is converted to string and it just printed on the console. So what we are doing is we are using this num variable directly inside the string. So it improves the code readability, and also it helps us to interpolate the values inside the string. So this is called template strings. Now let's move on to the next feature, which is destructuring array and objects. Destructuring arrays and objects. So let's say we have a function which will return us an array. And it will just return us an array 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, and let returned value be equal to return array, and we'll call this. So if we just console log, it's just basic. We are returning the function return array is returning an array, and it sticks into the returned variable, and return variable has four values. Okay, so what we can do here is, if we want to destructure this, let's say this was returning first it was returning a number 1, and second it was returning some name. So the return variable now has both of them, but for us to access the name, we have to do returned and then the first value, then only we can access the name. So to remove this extra line of code, we can do is we can do this number and name. So what happens is, now return is vanished, we can have a number and we can have a name. So this return array function call will return us, what will it do, it will return us the array of 1 and Rohan, basically. Yeah, and what this equality sign will do, it will stick 1 to number and it will stick Rohan to name, respectively. Whatever the case be, it will stick 1 to number and Rohan to name. What happens if we do this? What happens if we do other value here? So now name is undefined. Why is this? Because 1 is been stick to num, Rohan has been stick to other, and name, well, the array doesn't contain any more values, so this name will remain undefined. If we just console log other, now other has the value Rohan. So this is called destructuring in array. Destructuring means we are taking the array, we are destructuring it. I mean तोड़ रहे हैं इसको, we are destructuring it. So num and name are done, then we can just use the name value directly. Now let's see how to destructure objects. Let's comment this out. Okay, return objects, return object, and it will return us an object name first, which is Rohan, and second last is Mehta, and it will return object, return object, and let's keep this as a return for now, and we will destructure it later. Console log returned, and this. Now returned is an object. See, yes, now the object is being returned and it is being strict to return. So what if we want to access the last name? So we have to do return dot last, so we can access the last name. But with destructuring, we can do something like this. We can do first and last. And one thing I forgot to tell you, first and last. in destructuring, while destructuring the arrays, we can use any data, any variable name. We can use num or any variable name. There is no issue with the variable name. But when we are destructuring the objects, if we are destructuring it like this, so we need to use the same variable names, same key names, to be specific, key names. So if we are using first name, so it will not it will give an error. First name will be undefined because it doesn't have any first name key in this object. So what if we want to reassign this first variable to first name? So what we can do is, I will just copy it down here. We will have first name first as first name. So it is a big funky looking code, so just bear with me. First and last will be taken as last name. And what will happen now? First name capital. Now if we need to use different variable names, so this will take the first from the object, and it will assign a variable first name and will stick the value to this. And for the same for the last, it will take the last key and it will assign it, rename it to last name and stick method to it. Now we can use first and last name. So this is how we can use object destructuring in JavaScript. Okay, so this was destructuring. Now let's see spread. Let an array be 1 2 3 4. So if we are going to define a new array, let new array, and we want the values of array. So what we do, if we do this, if we do new array equals to array, okay, so we are getting the new array. But what if we push some value to this new array, and but we don't want the original array to change. So let's see if the original array changed or not. Original array, so you can see the original array was changed. It also got a value 6 in it, but we didn't push the value to that array. Why is this happening? This is happening because when we assign this new array to this array is pointing to the memory where this array is defined, and it just passes on that memory to the new array. So to overcome this issue, this issue of copying array. Okay, so this just copies the array, and whenever we mutate this array, the next array is also changing. So this should not change when we update new array. So solve the above problem using what we are going to use. We are going to use spread. Now let's define the array again. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5. Oops. We are now going, let's comment this. Let the new array be, and now we are going to use the spread operator, which is just dot 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 and the array. What it will do, it will just spread the array values, like spreading butter over something. So we are like spreading the array, we are taking the array and removing the square brackets from it, and we are taking 1 2 3 4 and we are just spreading it here inside the new array. So it is just like we are doing this. We are taking the array ARR values, removing the brackets, and just we are spreading it like this. So this is a funky looking syntax, and it does the same. So now what is happening? Okay, 3 dots. If we now do this, if we now push some value to the array, to the new array, so then the original array is not changing. Because it has created a new copy which doesn't have the pointer reference to the original array. So now changing the new array would not change the original array. So this is what spread operator solves the problem. Now we can use the rest operator. So let's rest operator. Did I use spread here? Spread here. Spread rest spread operator. And rest operator. Yeah, so now let's make a function sum. It will take two values and return the sum of those values. Okay, now if we console log the result, we have to define the result equals to sum of 1 and 3. So it gives us 4, but you see what is the problem here. This sum will only return values for 2 values. If we were to pass 5, it won't return the sum, it won't return the correct sum. Then we have to have assign a new value for this, and then again write a new return statement, and then only it will return us 9. So what we can do is we can make it a modular function. Modular, I mean we can use it with any number of arguments. So what we can do is we can do this rest operator, rest and numbers. So let's see what this number is. Let's return 0 for now. Let's console log what this numbers variable is. So you can see this number variable is the array of the arguments passed. So no matter how many arguments we are passing it, this will just rest on the function. So rest will take all these numbers, and it will it will make it an array. It will create square brackets at the end of, and make them an array, so that we can use them easily. So now what we can do is we can just define let sum equals to 0 here. We can just loop in the let I equals to 0, I less than numbers dot length, and I plus plus. And what we'll do sum plus equals numbers I. Okay, and then finally we'll return the sum. So now it works like a modular function. We can just give it one value, or we can give it 2 values, 3 values, and it will work just fine. So that is how the rest operator works. It is mainly used with functions to just convert the arguments into arrays. So this is rest operator. This solves a really good problem in JavaScript. For the last, we have arrow functions. This is a new way of writing functions. Like first we were writing the function as myfunc, and then we were using function keyword, and then we're using this bracket, and then we were sorry, this then we were having a return statement, return Rohan, and let the result be my func. We are calling this function, and let's console log the result. So it will console log simple. Now we can just improve this. This is a lot of code. We can improve the above code. So this is the basic definition, basic function definition. Now we will change it to arrow functions. So arrow functions, what arrow functions does? Arrow functions is a nice syntactic sugar to define functions. What I am saying is that we don't need this function keyword. We just need equal to this brackets, and then we'll need an arrow like this arrow. And if we are returning only one statement, well, here we are returning only Rohan, so we can omit this whole code block and return, and we'll just return Rohan. So you see how small this becomes, how small this code becomes. Only in 3 lines we are just creating a function which has this bracket, and it is returning Rohan. And if this function is passed name in it, it can just return that name too. Now it is returning undefined for now because the name is not passed. So if we pass on the name, it will return the name. If we pass on 2 values to it, so it will return. Now we are going to return 2 values, so number. So if we are going to return 2 values, so what if we do it like this? Let's see. It will not happen because comma is not a valid return statement. Not a valid. It's just like returning like this. Return name comma number. So it is not a valid statement. It will give an error. So what we can do, we can make it an object. Name as name, and number as number. We can return the object. What is this? Unexpected token. Three 14.2. Okay, so it will not. Okay. Oh, I see what is happening here. It is say in the function, when we were defining arrow function, we were omitting out this curly braces. But now when we are using this curly braces, it needs a return statement inside it, and now we need to wrap these in object braces too. So it will be looking like this. So now it works fine. Also we can do something. If we don't want to use the return statement, we can do this like this, I guess. Yeah. So now it won't need a return statement. So let me just copy this example and write it in a return statement type. Return. Now it is a function. It will return an object, my func1. So these are arrow functions. Simply just write a bracket, an arrow, and then if you are returning only one thing, then you can just wrap it inside these brackets, and whatever value you are going to return, you can put it here. If you are not using these brackets and just directly using the object or directly using these curly braces, then it will tend to think that you need a multi-line return. You need to do something here. So that is why it was failing in the previous case. So whenever this comes, then it becomes a multi-line function. For this, this is a single line function, single return statement. It has a single return expression. But in this it can have multi-line code, and after executing return. Okay, it's throwing me error because of connection issues. The net not working. Okay, it's not working. Okay, fine. It's throwing me. Let me just check the network issue. Wi-Fi is not connected. Sorry for the network issues there. We can just resume. Yeah, everything's working now. Okay, so these were arrow functions. Let me just go back to the previous example we were having in during the callback functions. Yeah, this is the API example which we were having. Yeah, so API example, we are going to start with promises now. Promises and async await. API example with promises. Let's just uncomment this whole. Okay, it is saying it is not defined. Why is this happening? I guess the script is not working, so we don't have to use this anyway. We are going to use the fetch function which the browser has in it. So okay, sorry, I need the URL too. Now what are promises to start first? Promises are like in the example of our restaurant, we were giving the customer was giving his number to the waiter, which is not good, because we are giving our information to someone else, and we don't know how they will execute it. Maybe he gives the phone number to some marketing company and you get calls all the day. Just like in this, we are giving this own success function to this or success call, and we don't know what it will pass to this. So we are giving a critical function to someone else. So this is not good. What we can do is we can reverse the situation. We can wait for them to give us something. Getting me? In the example of restaurant, what we can do, what they can do is the waiter gives the customer a buzzer, and whenever and the buzzer has three conditions, three states. It is pending, it is resolved, or it is rejected. Pending means the order is still in processing, it is processing some order. Resolved, or a green light on the buzzer, which means that all your order is ready, you can come and take your order. And then we have rejected. So what if the materials were finished and no order was successful? So it will give us rejected or the red light. So this way we are not giving our function, our mobile number, our function to someone else. We are taking we are consuming the things that they provide us, like the buzzer in the case of restaurant, or in the case of in this example, a promise. What a promise is: promise has three states. The promise is promise is something something someone will return to us. It can have three states. First is pending state. Second is resolved state, and third is rejected state. So for example, if I do this fetch, and let me take the URL and fetch, and let me save the thing returned by this fetch call here. Okay, now I will console log the return value. So you can see we have returned a promise that it promises us to return something, and it is currently in pending state. So fetch, and this fetch function call, it takes the URL and it gives us a promise कि yes, I will return you something, but it is right now in a pending state, but I will return you something. Okay, so right now it is in pending state, so how we will come to know that it has returned us something? So you can do something called, okay, let me just check, promise pending. Let me just copy this again and print it here, and just this, so that people can watch or people can see this again. Okay, now to see what happens if this promise gets resolved, like it was in pending state first, but it will get either resolved or rejected. So to see what happens when things get resolved, we can use a dot then chain to see what this promise will give us. So dot then, and you will have a function here which will receive a data, and will console log that data, or what we say a response, which will receive a response, and we will console log what response comes when this promise is resolved. So when the promise is resolved, we are getting a response constructor, which is an object, and its name is response. So where is the JSON which we were getting while using that? So in Fetch API it works something a bit unusually. It needs a different .dent chain again to receive the data. It will not happen in other console log response, and we need to return response.json, which is an internal thing, and internal thing in the Fetch API. So here is our response. This fetch will return us a response whenever the promise is resolved. The response has a method on it, which is a JSON .json, and this again is a promise. So if we can just console log here, console.log response.json call, so we can see that it itself is a promise. It will get us the JSON from the response, and you can see why the body has already been consumed is happening. It is because that it has already fulfilled the promise, and we are again returning the promise, but it has already been resolved, so it is not in the pending state. So this dot then chain is not working, so we can just remove this. And finally, for the fetch promise to resolve, we are using this dot then, and we are getting the response. We are again doing response.json, which is similar to doing this, and it will return us a promise which is either in the pending state or will get resolved or rejected. And to see this, we need to supply a different .then chain to receive this the value from this promise. So a separate .then chain is required to receive the value from this promise, which whenever it gets fulfilled, and when it gets fulfilled, it will pass us the data, and we can then console log the data. So you see, this is the simple way of fetching from an API. So let me just copy it, and what we can improve in this, improve the above code using ES6. What we can do, as you can see, we are having a function which is returning only one line. Here also this function is returning only one line. So we can use an arrow function. We can remove this function keyword. We can have this bracket and what will be passed in it, and we can have an arrow, and if you want, you can write you can have this curly braces and the return statement, but I will have both of them in this example. I will convert this function into arrow function, and this time in this I will not return with this with the curly braces. So both examples are shown here. With the curly braces, I can use the return statement. Without the curly braces, it automatically returns this console.log. So it is now working. It is now looking more elegant. Okay. So previously in the get.json, we were handling the error as well. So how to handle this error, and when will the error will occur? So error will occur whenever this promise gets rejected. And how we will get that rejected value, or what happened with that, we can use .catch, and I will use the arrow functions again, error, and I will directly console.log the error, return the console log of the error. Okay, fine. Now this happens. Now if something goes wrong in this promise, something goes wrong, it will skip these .then chains, and it will directly go in this catch. It will pass the error in it, and it will console log the error. Okay, so let's say what happens if we make it users. Now it is not console logging the data anymore. It is going in the error, it is passing the error, and it is saying it is giving me the error which is not found, or some documentation URL. So I can easily log errors. So so as to compare with the previous where it went, compare with the previous API example, these lines of code, somewhat like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12, approximately 12 to 13 line of code is reduced into just 1 2 3 4 5 6 lines of code. So we need only half the code to I can just remove this on success. We can just use this fetch method, and you can just use the concept of promises to fetch any URL, and in this way you don't have to give your function to this someone to make the success function run. You are just waiting for the fetch call to resolve its promise, and it will return you the response whenever the response is ready. Okay, so let's see a different example. Let's see what async await has to offer us. How can that async await will help us? Let's see. I'll just comment this code. Async and await. Okay, now we will have function which will send request function. Okay, and send request function will, what it will do, it will send the request to GitHub. your API, and finally whatever result, return the result, and whatever result comes I will have send request function call, and it will return me the result, and I will console log the result. Okay, so first of all we need to send the request to GitHub API, and now we will use the same fetch API. We will use the same fetch API. We will use the same URL. Let me just copy this URL. Okay, fetch API. Now the thing which will be different here is we will have let response be fetch. Now let's see what response is here. So response is a promise pending. So we saw what response was there. So what if we want the resolved response from this fetch API? Resolved, not the pending promise, the resolved promise. So we need to use async await. We need to await for this function to complete, and to use await, there is an error, cannot use error keyword await in outside of an async function. So to use await, we need this function to be async. Okay, we need to apply this keyword async before the function for this function to be async. So it is returning the same response, right? First let's clear this. Okay, why is that printing? I guess why is this printing? Okay, this console statement is there. I don't know why is okay. This result is the result is being printed. This result is now promise pending because this function is async, so we need to await here too. Async function always returns a promise to us, so we need async. And now again we are getting some error, which is await cannot be rooted inside the async function. So what we can do here, we can just not for this we can do something called immediately invoked function, but I will not, this is not the scope for this session. I will just remove this and console log the result here. That let the response will be fetching from this. Now the send request function will not be called. Okay, so what we can do here, async function will wait for this. What we can do is we can wrap it in a function and await. We don't have an async okay, I guess it will not work. What we can do is so I guess we can solve this the problem with what the problem is, we are not having a top level await async in this one. This is a problem here because this function, this send request, if we need to await this send request, this whole await should have been inside async function. So this is a global area, so we can't have a global async. So what we can do is we can define a button, and with the class of btn, and we will have click property, click on it, and okay, and the button, we will do this document dot query selector. We'll select that button. We will have an event listener, and we will listen for a click event. And here is the best example for a callback function. We'll be using a function callback. So this event will give us click event, will return us an event. So on click, this add event listener function will execute the function for us, this function for us, and it will provide us with an event, and it will prevent default so that this will not reload the page. And we can move this here. Send request will be moved here. We can move all these things here, and we can just delete the send request and console log the result. We can done here. Okay, so for using await, we need an top level async. So I will make this function async. So it will now await, and it will only happen, this function will only be called whenever I click this. Okay, so whenever I click this result is not defined for time being. Okay, whenever I click this, it will give me a response. Okay, and this string, I should remove this. And also for getting the JSON, we need let data equals to response.json, and let's see the data. What happens to data? Response.json. Let's see what happens to data. It is in promise pending. So why is that so? Because we haven't waited for this. We haven't await for this. So awaiting for this, we click, and now our result is here. So this is just coming in 3 lines, which is half of what we were achieving in the fetch, and what is double of what we say, one fourth of what we were achieving with the simple get JSON. So this is why how powerful this await and async can be. Await just pauses the execution till this response is fulfilled, this promise is fulfilled, it pauses the execution in this line, and then it goes into next line, it pauses the execution here, and it then goes to the next line. So it improves the readability drastically. That is why we should use async and await wherever we can. So I guess this is the end of this session, and if you have any doubts regarding any of the code, you can just email us or ping us on Slack, or I'll just show you the you can just ping us here. This is a website. We are available at on the Slack as a Slack workspace, and you can also ping us on Telegram. You can subscribe to our newsletter for more events such as this. And thank you for being so patient, being so calm to get through this session. Thank you. And your feedback also matters to us, so you can go to godsckites.com/feedback to fill out a feedback form. Thank you all.